Going to do some shout outs for the answers. Question 1, what are the age guidelines for students served with special needs? Thoughts? What did you guys come up with?
Birth through 21.
Birth through 21, exactly. We're required as soon as they are born, many kids, they can identify immediately that they might have a hearing issue, they might be deaf, they might see that there could be a potential physical disability from birth. We're required to start providing services as early as when they're born. Very good. All the way through 21. Now, obviously, we try to work with our students in the high school level to have them graduate based on course credit and not based on IEP goals, but there are special circumstances in which students can graduate as late as 21. For our students, any of our teachers that might be at West High School, you might see some of our students who are in our classrooms that have students that have more significant intellectual disabilities and physical disabilities that will be graduating most likely based on their IEP goals and not based on course credits. So that's where that comes into play. It's really designed to make sure that students are ready for life after high school for that goal. What is child find? What is that? What answer did you guys come up with for child find?
Finding and locating any and all students that may have or children with a disability, even if, like around the area, even if they're in private school or whatever.
Exactly. It is our obligation as educators to make sure that we are due diligent in our efforts to make sure that we are providing services to any student who may have a disability. Does that mean that we go out to the mall and look at a kid and say, "Oh, I think you have a disability, you better come to school and we'll evaluate you"? No. What that means is that, for instance, today, I know that we had a student who was at Central Middle School who withdrew from our district, and the family enrolled him in a private school. So I called our SNAP department, who provides services to students in private schools, provides them with their special education services, to make sure that we offered and reached out to this family to offer him his services while he attended this private school. That was my obligation. That's child find. Child find is that if we are a classroom teacher and we suspect that a child may have a disability, it is our obligation to make sure that we go through the process of evaluating that child and either rule it out or identify and diagnose that child so that he or she gets the services that they need to be successful. Very good. What is our legal responsibility if a parent requests services or thinks their child has a disability? What are we legally obligated to do?
Tell the counselor or principal.
Yeah, well, that's the first step. The first step is tell a counselor, and you need to tell somebody immediately. Once a parent tells you, even if it's just in a phone call in haste, and you've called to say, "Okay, Susie failed this assignment again. We've had this conversation before. She keeps failing this assignment," and the mom just goes, "I don't know what's wrong with that girl. She just must have a disability." Even if it's just something as simple as that, it is your responsibility to follow through with that and say, even if it makes sure that you have a clear understanding of what that parent is saying, because it is our responsibility. That parent could be saying to you, "I think there's something wrong with my child," and they're wanting to have additional testing done. Don't err on the side of, "Oh, they were just saying that out of frustration." Take it to the guidance counselor and have your guidance counselor do some follow-up phone calls or something, okay? It could even be a care team issue. But it is, if a parent comes to you and says, "I really think there's something going on with my child. She's failing all these assignments. I really think she might be learning disabled or something. I don't know," then definitely take it to the guidance counselor. That immediately starts the timeline for evaluation, so we have to act immediately. Now I have a quick question for you. How many of you felt rushed to complete that assignment? Did you guys feel rushed? When I said there was 1 minute, I got some feedback like, "Oh, we still have a lot to do." Okay? How many of you felt like you had not much information to work with? Like maybe you could have used some more information? Okay? How many felt kind of distracted by maybe outside the noise in the room, like there was too much going on? Anybody feel distracted by the noise in the room? Like there was other factors? So there were a few hands that went up in the air. As a classroom teacher, think about that. As you hand an assignment to your kids and say, you have 5 minutes to complete it, and you have a child with a specific learning disability in reading that can't comprehend the words on those pages, giving them that time limit may be a barrier to their success. Or if you have a child that has OHI for ADHD, and all of that noise in the background is going to keep him from focusing on that task at hand, he may not finish the assignment because he's so busy worried about what's going on behind him. So think about that as you start implementing the accommodations for kids. And we'll talk about that in a minute. There's a document on your table that you'll be able to use to help you with that. But those are the little things, and I intentionally did that because I want you to be mindful of just some of the simple structures that we put in place for kids that not all of our kids can respond to so easily. Whether they have a 504 or an IEP, and maybe even some of those kids that haven't been identified yet. They could be sitting in the back of the room struggling or sitting with the group struggling. Or even some of our kids who, in a group setting, may rely on a teammate because I can't read, nobody knows I can't read, so I'm just going to listen to my partner. So think about that as you give these kinds of assignments to your students, okay? But I'm going to do it to you again. The next set of slides, you have a slide that looks like this. So when you think that you have a student that might have a disability, there's some guiding questions. What are your responsibilities as a classroom teacher? What do you need to do? And don't rely just on this slide. Rely about what you do every day in the classroom as a teacher. Sometimes it's not just about what your legal responsibility is, but it's about what your best practices are. What are some resources available to you? The slides have some resources listed for you very specifically. You might have some additional. Pull from your background knowledge. Pull from your previous experiences. Pull from a care team meeting that you might have just had this week or last week. It's only Monday, last week. Describe some accommodations that you might provide in your classroom. There's a document on your table that you are welcome to take with you, that I also have extra copies, that looks like this. This is the Parkway Accommodations and Modifications Definitions and document that is on Special Services website. If you've not seen it, it is a very helpful document. You're welcome to take it with you. I have more copies at the front if you need it. I only put one on the table for purposes of this activity. Use it as a reference for this as well. Answer these 3 questions. Figure out your teams how you might be able to jigsaw yourselves to answer these 3 questions in 5 minutes or less and be able to come up with responses. This time, I want you to designate somebody in your group that can give out an answer for your team, okay? 5 minutes.